Hi and welcome. In this video I'm going to show you the updated version of shifting tool, version 3. Firstly, let me quickly remind you what this tool is for, what is it used for. The most important thing is this button, naturally matched from anim layer. This is the tool itself. It offsets the animation. It has, I have separate animation tutorial, separate tool tutorial for this tool specifically in 2 languages. I'm going to link it in the video and under the video in the description. But generally speaking, it is used for matching animation to specific poses. Control correction, let's say, to avoid feet sliding or leg sliding during animation. It is also used for side movements, so moving left or right, creating turning animations, and stuff like that, and so on and so forth. This script is very useful for cleaning up the mocap animation data, especially mocap animations for games, because in games you quite often need very specific animations like for turns in different directions or moving in different directions, or just cleaning up animation for specifically game purposes, for root motion and so on and so forth. I have a lot of videos on my channel devoted to this tool specifically, a lot of guides, a lot of tutorials, and those are combined into several separate playlists for your convenience. You can find the link in the description. The updated version has this new button. It's correct to separate anim layer. It is very convenient when you are naturally using the animation layers. So there is this tab, path from layer. I'm gonna click it, and here, yeah, there are a lot of different settings, some kind of sci-fi technology, sci-fi UI, a lot of things to look at. But it is actually quite simple. Do not be afraid. I'm gonna try to explain it right now. Let's say the autopath from anim layer is a simplified version of one of my older scripts, which was called walking path. I also have a separate video for that working path tool. But the difference between this script and that one is that this one, autopath, it's not interactive. So when we change the trajectory of movement, when we change the path, essentially, it doesn't change interactively. And we'll see the result only after recalculating the animation. But it is both kind of convenient and non-convenient, so it's both good and bad. It is good because it actually works very fast, but it is bad that we don't see the final result right away. And you also don't have an access to separate parameters, separate options like for tilting, for offsets, and so on and so forth. But for most of the tasks, most of the simple tasks, it is more than enough. Let's actually start working with this tool. I'm going to show you how it works. We have this animation. We have this girl. She's awesome. She's beautiful. Here we have a rather common task. I would say it's a classical one. Let's say we have this object in the scene and we want to go around this object. You see right now, naturally, we're going through those. So we need to change it in a specific way. The first thing we can do, the easiest one, I'm going to select the leg controls and main offset control, so which offsets the character in space. If your rig doesn't have, let's say, main global control, I'm going to show you the solution later, how you can use the script without the control, but it's preferable to use one. Just make sure you note it. All right, we selected 2 leg controls and the main control, which is essentially the control that moves the character in space again. And we're creating a new animation layer for that. And here we have a bind pose, new pose. I'm gonna set a key, or just offset it to just some kind of starting position. And then I want to create keys and offset the character in places where the character should kind of go around the object. So right here, she moves right here. And let's say I want the character to be on the other side, maybe right here. So I offset it here. All right. And after that, let's assume that she's just moving forward and getting back to her initial position. I click the afterpath from enemy layer button, click it. It's gonna think for a while, just a bit. What did we get? There is a new separate layer. Our previous layer got locked. So how does it work right now? You will see that she right now changes the direction of her motion, which looks quite nice. She stands here, okay, and starts to move back. Nice. Yeah, you can see that here he actually goes through the table. Naturally, we do not like it. We can either select the controls again or select objects from this layer, because they are naturally stored in this layer. And then, again, do the same. I'm gonna create a new animation layer. I'm gonna set a key at the end, because it's kind of the end position. And then right here, I want to move her here and click afterpath again. Let's take a look. I see that she is moving. I see again, yes, she's still kind of going through the table. Here, instead of creating a new layer, I can exaggerate the weight of the current layer. So yeah, something like this. Sweet. And yes, you can see that she walked around the table, stood still for a while, and then went back. If you are very attentive, you may ask the question, well, how does it work? I mean, why aren't her feet sliding? It's not just rotating the character in space and that's it. No, it's a much more complicated system. How does it work? By the way, we can actually parent one animation layer to another and then turn it off and on and see the result, the difference. You see it this way, we kind of canceled all the changes. So how does it work? I mean, what is the idea? Because here, her trajectory of motion, it actually got longer. So logically thinking, the animation should be sliding because it should kind of get to the same position, but with the same animation length. And the animation itself is baked. Again, you can actually watch my guide for the working band tool because it is explained there. But essentially, the selected animated controls are baked to the curve, to the trajectory of motion. And when the curve gets bigger or longer or shorter, the animation gets adjusted. So effectively, in this case, the character just takes longer steps. Her steps are wider, her stride is wider. So you have to understand that this approach has limitations. You can't just, make the character move for like infinitely in a very long direction, very long kind of distances, because she will not be able to make the steps wide indefinitely. All right, awesome. What are these settings? What do they do? I'm going to explain it just right now. Let me delete it. By the way, let's say if you don't like something, do not use Ctrl Z. Do not use undo because it's gonna take some time. You just delete these layers. And if you need to change anything, you will still have your original changes, your original animation layer. You can activate it and change what you want. Okay, so what are the settings? Here, by default, if you do not specify here anything, the script tries to, how do I call it? Here, the script tries to understand by itself what is the main control, where is the main control. And here, by default, by logic, the script looks at the hierarchy, and the control which is higher at the hierarchy, in the hierarchy, the script will consider it the main object, the main control. So for example, right here we have legs, and in the hierarchy above we have this main control. But of course, rigs may differ a lot, because there are a lot of different approaches, a lot of different systems, and very huge variations may be present. So legs may not be in the same hierarchy as the main control. There very well may be cases where these controls will not be in the same hierarchy. They will be kind of separate, maybe in a separate group or something like that. Those, let's say, these leg controls may be in the group, or groups which are constrained to the main control. Something like that is very well possible. That's why I kind of advise you to give it a shot. Just try working with default settings. Maybe the script will be able to find the global control by itself without any help from your side. If not, you just select the control and click this arrows button, and it will specify the main control here. And based on this control, all the calculations will be made. The CV setting will be more apparent and clear once I show you how the manual path actually works. Alright, let me delete actually all the animation layers that I have right now. Let's just start over. I'm gonna select two controls and the main control. By the way, if you do not have a humanoid character, maybe you have a horse, or maybe a crocodile, or so something that is not human or humanoid-like, and which are maybe more they're longer, so kind of elongated characters. So essentially in this case you will also need to select not only the leg controls but the spine controls, kind of torso controls. So essentially imagine if the horse wants to rotate to a different side, the horse will bend the kind of upper torso and then the hips. So that's why you need to select also the torso controls and spine controls as well. All right, again, I'm going to select three objects. Then I'm going to create an animation layer. For convenience, let's do the following. Let's press the create path curve at first. You see, I have this curve. So based on this main control, the script calculated necessary things for this curve, so necessary trajection, and created a curve. And for this curve, we used the 5 CV points. That's why 5 CV. But here there's a catch. You see that the trajectory itself isn't quite matching the animation, because by default the script looks at the time range at the animation layer. If the animation layer doesn't have any keys or has only one key, so the script uses the entire selected time range in the timeline for the curve. So in this case from 0 to 457. So by default the script takes this time range, and specifically from the outer boxes, not kind of the ones that are inside, but outmost left and outmost right. But alternatively, if the layer has keys, specifically 2 or more keys, then the script uses 2 outmost keys, and I specifically say outmost, so the keys in the middle, they do not play any role, they're just ignored essentially. Let's say I want the range from 0 to 231. In this case, this specific range is going to be used by the script. And it doesn't matter where the keys are. Like maybe legs, maybe main control, still it's going to find the keys. So right here I'm not offsetting anything, it's not necessary for me. I just need to specify the range. So I need to specify objects and the range in the animation layer. Objects, I mean the animation layer. And then I'm gonna press the create path curve. Again, I'm using 5 CVs, so nothing new here. Yeah, I can see what we got. Of course, we can use maybe more CVs. It's up to you. If you don't like the curve itself, you do not use Ctrl Z, do not use undo, just delete and create it from scratch. Maybe let's use 4 CVs. Why not? For overall convenience. All right. And now we need to take this curve and adjust it, just bend it essentially, in order to get a necessary for us path of motion, trajectory of motion. Maybe I want the character to move on this podium, maybe she's a model or something like that. So essentially I want her to move on this specific path. Yeah, I want her to follow this path. And moreover, I actually want her to go right here at first, stand there for a while, and then continue moving forward. So the first part of her animation should be her moving to the left and then moving forward. This tool is also great not only for bending or creating overall trajectories, but actually for positioning your animation. You can freely take the curve and position it as you see fit, because it's rather convenient, and then make the character move along this, follow this curve. So you can just take this curve, you can move it up, you can place it, again, you can of course bend it as you see fit. Maybe I can move this point right here. And the curve itself is made in a very specific way, so that it keeps its length. If for some reason you maybe don't need it to keep its length, you can click the unlock lane or unlock length button and just move the points. But it's very important to note, the animation will be stretched according to the distance between the points, between the knots. So you cannot just randomly position points as you see fit, kind of randomly in space and so on. Because it will affect the animation. It will make that the character has maybe shorter steps in one place, then huge wide steps in other place, so it will not look good. I can press the lock lane to lock the length and it will work as previously. I'm gonna click, so it's kind of the first way to control the animation. I'm going to click apply, then wait for a bit. And you will see that as a result, the part of animation that we focused on for this specific curve, it got recalculated. And you will also see that I was messing with the points at the end of the curve, and you'll see that at some stages, at some places right over here, the step is too wide, right here. So that's the point, that's the problem. That's why I'm going to delete it. It's not advised to do so. Let's actually do it properly. The animation layer itself can be kept, maybe turned off. It's not necessary to turn it on each time. It's just needed for the objects inside this layer. I'm going to create a new curve. And then for our convenience, since it's not always convenient to move the points themselves, and because if I just gonna move it right now, move the points, all this unevenness in the curve is gonna be moved as well, so it's gonna be preserved. So it's a bit difficult to understand what is the final result will be, in the sense that the girl, the character, may kind of tilt to the sides a bit or feel like she's drunk or something like that, so it's not advisable to do so. I'm gonna create curve control. That's going to give us these locators. Each point, each CV is attached to this locator, to a locator. You see rotates are frozen, or zeroed out rather. And then I'm going to select this locator. Maybe let's, we can move it right here using vertex snapping. I can rotate it like this, then move it right here. And then these guys. Also pay close attention. If you rotate the locators, the curve is trying to keep its length. You naturally can zero out the rotations in order to keep to return the curve to its original length. And thus it will return the curve to its original state with all the unevenness and so on and so forth. So let's say right here the character will just stop at the end. We can add some corrections naturally. Maybe I can move it like this, then like this, or rotate rather. I can move it like this. I think it's going to be fine. If you do not like anything, you can unparent these locators. So you can select a locator, And here you can select this locator and just unparent it from the hierarchy. If you want to, maybe you want to adjust the part of the curve. You see right here, if I move one locator, it actually moves the entire curve because it's in one hierarchy. So you can select the locator and click the Arrange button. Now this locator is considered to be the parent, kind of the main locator, and the rest are children. Okay, so let's say this result is sufficient for us. Of course, you can delete this system, this curve, create a new one, and so on and so forth. But after that, you can click Apply. But there's one more thing. When we click Apply, all the settings, all the parameters are taken from this menu. All right, I'm gonna click the Apply button. Just wait for a bit. And we'll see that our girl is walking. She walks like this, then she rotates. Awesome. Yeah, but here I kind of went overboard just a little bit. Actually, I did it intentionally because I wanted to show you how to fix the situations, how to solve those problems. All right. Again, I'm going to select these objects. Again, our controls, I mean. Select objects. All right. I have a hotkey for that, so it's a bit difficult to find the option itself. And let's create a new animation layer. And let's say from here, let's say this range is questionable for me and the rest is fine for me. I'm going to create a new path, create path curve. And then I can select the locator, the parent locator, and maybe scale the curve just slightly. And you can understand that scaling is also works as rotates, the same as rotates, translates, so it all functions properly. After that, I can click Apply to apply the changes. Let's see. And here we just scaled, or rather squashed the curve slightly. Yeah, but maybe in this case she's a bit too far to the right, as you can see. But yet again, I can select the previous animation layer, the one that is turned off right now, and create a new path curve, like this. Again, pressing curve control. Let's maybe rotate the curve like this and apply. And again, I'm showing you the issues intentionally because it would be rather easy for me to do everything just perfectly from the first time. But I want to show you how to work iteratively. Let's say if you got some changes from the client, some feedback, and you want to change, or maybe you made a mistake, that's perfectly fine in this process. I just show you the flexibility of this tool. All right. But you see, moving back, she's moving just straight, just forward. Because in the animation, she was just moving forward and just backwards. So essentially we rotated the first part of the animation and it rotated the entire animation as well. So let's correct the second part of the animation. Again, I can select these objects. I'm going to create a new animation layer. I'm going to do it with the short key this time. Again, sometimes I'm going to use short keys because it's muscle memory at this point. Like 0 keys in animation layers, those are going to be created as with the shortcuts as well, just because I'm very used to it. So sorry, just pay attention to the stack on the right. And just till the end of the animation, I'm going to set the key, create, but actually there are 41 CVs here, so it definitely shouldn't be this way. Let's change it. Then I'm going to create a path curve, curve control for the ease of use. And then I'm going to rotate the curve. It should be something maybe like this, then like this, approximately like this. So let's say it's sufficient for me. Also, this one I will not touch because if I start changing it, it will affect the entire animation. It will affect the first part of animation. So this first part, it's preferable to keep it as is. Apply. Let's take a look at the result. Now she moves, she goes left, then she goes forward. Okay, yeah, nice, nice. What else can be done? And of course, all these changes are stored in this separate animation layer, so you can turn those off, delete, override. And these layers are override right now, so they're just overriding the layers that are below. Okay. What else can we do? Here, when she rotates, her shoulders are rotating maybe too much to the left. If you have a walking band tool, since it is interactive, it is far easier to spot, and you can also control the offsets, the tilts, a lot of different tools. Right here we don't have it, so we'll have to do it manually. It's not as efficient and as convenient, but it can be done. I can select this upper controls, create new animation layer, maybe move it like this, then rotate like this. Right here there's a zero key, and here is 0 key again. So right here we kind of corrected, in this small range we corrected the animation, then zeroed it out essentially just to get back to the original animation. Maybe right here I can actually move her up a little bit because I feel like it. And she moves like this, very nice, very nice. By the way, somewhere, I believe somewhere around here, she intersects her arm with the hip. So I can adjust it again in the same way, using the animation layer, 0 keys, so on and so forth. And the same can be done to the second part of the animation. I hope it is quite clear at this point. What else can be done? We're using this shifting tool. It is very convenient to use this tool to improve or correct the walks. So shifts like this, offset movements. Again, there is a separate guide for that. But what can we do actually here in this case? Specifically using autopath from Animal Layer. You can extend the walk. Let's say the girl is walking somewhere. And maybe I want her to move just slightly further. Maybe it's some kind of requirement for a specific project, specific case, specific cutscene, anything. Or maybe make her slower, just to essentially decrease her steps. And manually it's would be horrible to do, so what can we do here? I can select the controls, the same controls as well. So legs and the main control. Of course, if necessary, you can specify the main control here, as we have already discussed. I'm creating a new animation layer. Let's keep it doesn't matter. Using 5 CVs and create path curve. You see there is a curve, and now I can just scale this curve as needed. Maybe like this. 1.2 in this case, 1.26, maybe 1.3, just for clarity, and apply. The animation was recalculated. Now she takes one step and second step. You just can see that her steps are far wider than they were previously. Actually horrible. But what can we do here to fix it? Yeah, you see. You can choose 2 ways. First, you can decrease the weight of this layer. Maybe somewhere to 0.2, just to get something decent, something that satisfies me for the project. Maybe that's sufficient, maybe that's enough. Because we're changing the animation layer, essentially how this layer affects the previous ones. So this way you can also create different variations. It's an important thing to remember. It's very easy, but sometimes a very powerful approach. So let's say in here, in this case, 0.2, 0.26 is fine. And what if let's say if I use negative values. So I can click plus here a couple of times and move it in this direction. You can see that her steps got shorter. Of course, it kind of distorts the animation at some point, and at the very specific moment she will actually stop moving or will just move very weirdly. Yeah, so she essentially walks in place. It's actually kind of cute. Of course, it may be used maybe for some specific cases, specific examples, but it used to be 0.2, so let's keep it at 0.2. By the way, if you don't have these buttons in the animation tab, this is one of my scripts that essentially extends the functionality of animation layers, allowing you to use negative value, different other things. All right, this is the first approach. There is the second one. Again, we can set the value to 0.5, and then we can try using the animation layer. We can try just moving her down. So effectively, we're kind of compensating the leg overextension by moving her hips down, and it actually makes a lot of sense if you think about it, just lowering the pelvis. Let's increase it. Let's keep it at 1 and then try to lower her pelvis more. By the way, right now it actually looks fine. And what if, let's say if I parent the layers vice versa, maybe I do something like this, how it's going to change the animation? No, it doesn't work. No, sorry, never mind. There should be a different approach for that. Okay. So I increase the weight to 1. Let's see. We can move her pelvis even lower. But here, yeah, she's like very low. It's not very, I would say, natural. But here you can I can use the basic rig script. Again, it's a separate pack of my scripts. I can try maybe adjusting it separately. Yeah, maybe something like this. If you're interested in this basic rig script, you can watch my tutorial for basic rig script. It's like a whole another beast with a lot of cool tools. Okay, let's mute all here. And it looks kind of nice. Now I can decrease the weight of these layers. At 0, it is how it used to be, and then at 1, it's the updated version. Rather easy, convenient, and fast. Okay, that's it for this example. Let's actually move on to the more complicated one. I want to show you how it works with a bit more complicated characters, again, horses. Actually, the approach is the same. Here we just have the moving forward animation, nothing fancy. Again, what do we need? Here the only issue is to understand what controls do you need. What you can do is select these ones, because those are spine controls and they will most likely bend the torso. I will also select the pelvis control, the chest control, and I think the head control as well should be selected too. Okay. Neck. Yeah, let's also select the neck as well. Because otherwise, if I do not select it, it may lead to some issues where the neck simply isn't following the head correctly. it will look okay, but may not look as good as it could be. I'm not sure that's how the horse walks naturally, but let's just give it a shot. I can select these ones as well. There is one more actually right here. Naturally then leg controls and the main control, offset control. And let's maybe make it go around in circles. Right here, naturally, we can use the afterpath from animation layer, so a bit more automatic approach, or we can use the manual one. By the way, right here, do not forget, you have to specify the global control, just in case. Specifically if you have a very specific hierarchy. Okay, so what can we do? Maybe right here, let's move the horsey like this. Again, in a separate animation layer and so on and so forth. Afterpath, I clicked apply by accident. It takes some time to, because there are a lot of objects, a lot of controls, it's a bit more complicated rig. So don't be afraid, it should be fine. It's thinking, Maya is thinking. And that's what we got. Very nice. All the same, works in the same way, looks great. Of course, you can make your go in circles, stuff like that, make maybe more sharp turns, but please keep in mind that if you're gonna rotate here too much, essentially make a very too sharp turn, you will still need to adjust your animation manually, most likely. Maybe in some specific places you'll need to rotate the body, maybe tilt it slightly, and so on and so forth. So essentially the same case as with the shoulders in the previous example, in the previous character. Another example is attaching several characters to the path. Let's say right here we have a few characters, so those are guards. They're marching. Here the difficulty is that if these guys start rotating, maybe moving kind of to the left or to the right from our side, it's difficult to understand based on what object should we rotate the character and should we move the characters. Of course, it's clear for the one character, but what if we are working with several ones? Because it would mean that one character will move correctly and other characters may have maybe two steps that are too wide or too short steps and so on and so forth. So they no longer be marching. We can do the following. I'm going to create a locator. I'm going to increase its size. I'm going to select these two guys and the locator and constrain point without any offsets. Okay. So we're gonna base our curve on this locator. Then we need to select the necessary objects for the calculation. So I'm going to select the controls that I'm going to calculate based on. So this all the legs here and here, and all the main controls. So these are the legs and the main controls. Nice. And creating new animation layer. Naturally, if we don't have any keys, that it's going to be baked into the entire time range. Here we need to specify this locator as the curve object, because in this case it's specifically the main object for our kind of entire hierarchy, so to speak. And then we click, next we click create path curve. All right, I'm gonna add the curve control. Now I can offset the animation as I see needed. Maybe I want it, maybe I want the animation to start from this point. Then maybe I want to bend the curve like this. And like this, maybe something like this, something similar. Looks fine. And of course we can add other locators, but let's apply. Because there are a lot of objects and naturally it will take some time to process. Let's wait for a bit. Okay, it's done. Let's take a look. We have all the characters offset. Now they're walking and then they start rotating. Yep, it works. Also, you can pay close attention to the steps. You see that they maintain the distance between each other, so kind of maintaining the formation essentially, which is cool. They are taking the same steps in terms of the width of every single step, but that's specifically for the guys that are closer to the fence. But if we take a look at the guys that are kind of on the outer side, we'll see that they take longer steps because that's how it will work in real life. Of course, if you are working with maybe not with guards that should keep formation, or maybe with just a group of characters that are a bit random, it would be better to work with each character individually. Let's take a look at the next example. At the very beginning I said that it is advisable to work with animations when you have the global control or root motion, essentially, well, something similar to root motion. It's not like a precise root motion, exactly the same root motion. Because in games and in just animation, root motions are a bit different concepts. Here I'm just meaning that there is a main control or global offset control that offsets the character in space. But right here it's a different case. You see we have the global control and we have a recorded mocap animation, but the global control stays in place. Question: how to work with this case? You can do it, but it's a bit more difficult to do. Let me show you how it is done. In order to work with it, you should select the leg controls. And you have to add more controls actually to the basic layer, to the first layer. Usually these are legs, knees, pole vectors, and the pelvis control, which essentially offsets the character. In this case, I have a so-called easy rig. It's a simplified rig essentially that is much more effective to work with. So I'm selecting pelvis, I'm selecting chest, shoulders, and the head. And the legs, of course. And I add these to the layer. The next thing to remember, it's very important, when you are working without the root motion, without the global control, it's better not to work in a specific time range. It's better to change and edit the full animation. It works this way because we have this easing parameter, which essentially makes it so the object tries to return to its original state, kind of original animation, in this amount of time. In this amount, I mean specified in easing. And by the original animation, I mean the animation that was relative to the global control. So how it was essentially recorded before our changes. So if you do not have root motion, it's better not to change the animation in separate time ranges, but rather change the entire animation. The next thing to figure out is where are we going to get the curve? So what is going to be based on? So previously we based our curve on the global control, or root motion as I call it here. It was automatically done, it was far easier to work with. But here you must specify such an object manually in the curve object section. In this case, it's going to be pelvis CTRL. or CTR, pelvis control. Also, by the way, there is a flat checkbox right here, you can see it. It means that it will create a flat curve, essentially. So it will take the position, but the first position, and then it's going to create all the other positions with the same height. But if this checkbox is unticked, then there are going to be variations in height in your curve. So in this case, it's highly preferable to keep it as is, but there may be cases where it's necessary to turn it off. Just make sure you can maybe check it, maybe give it a shot and experiment with it. All right, create path curve. You'll see that we have a new curve. By the way, let me show you actually the example without the flat curve. I'm going to create a new one, and there is a difference. This is essentially how the pelvis moves vertically during the motion. Again, it's not really advisable, so I'm going to delete it. Let's create a path curve. And that's it. Maybe we can adjust it right away, we can edit it, we can add a curve control and maybe move it. Sorry, not this one. It should be inside the character. But remember, we have to move it only horizontally, because if I move the curve down, it will offset the entire animation, which may be necessary if the character needs to be on the roof or any place you need. I rotate it, and maybe I want the character to go around the building like this, or maybe let's from here. Apply. And you see, yeah, here the character moves around the corner. You see the road remains in place, but the animation was recalculated nonetheless. The next thing is utilities. Those are utilities for working with rootmotion. Because it is far easier to work with rootmotion, it just allows you to work easier, faster, more iteratively, and so it's just advisable to have rootmotion. So let's take a look. Let's bake our animation just to merge every layer. Let's say we have this animation. This is how we got it from the mocap, for example, mocap data. How shall we work with it? What should we do? We can do the following. Let's think about it. We need to select all the objects, all the controls that have internal animation. So essentially, those are the objects that we baked previously on the curve. I call them the objects or controls with the inner animation. So legs, knees, shoulders, elbows, arms, head, chest and head. Usually in most standard rigs, these controls are legs, knees, and big pelvis control. Add this to layer. Next, we have to specify what is the root control. You see right here there is insert root, so we select the root control. And just remember that you have to specify something here as a root control, so don't leave it empty. All right, I specified the main control. The next object is the object that we're going to take the animation from. The best case here is the pelvis, so the best candidate here for such control. Insert movable pelvis. By the way, it would be the same if you if you're going to work with horse animation, and if you get a mock-up animation for horse, actually let me know. I'm rather curious. But for a horse, it may be not the pelvis, but maybe the center of the torso, center of the belly, something like this. And it may be the control or the joint, doesn't really matter. And I would say that's it. Flat, we keep flat as is, so to essentially avoid the vertical part of the motion. And rotate, if we turn it on, the rotations will be kind of taken into consideration while calculating the root motion. But you see, all the rigs are different. I saw the rigs where the main control and the pelvis control had a completely different orientation from each other, so they were not matching at all. So that's why usually in most of the cases rotate here is turned off, because it should work fine without it, without kind of taking rotations into consideration. But you can experiment with it, you can try it out, it's perfectly fine. Usually translates are more than enough. Alright, then we click the calculate root motion button. Sorry, I talked too much. You see that we got root motion, which is nice. We got the global control moving after the character. And the logic behind it is actually rather simple, because we essentially take the pelvis position, pelvis height, then the height of the main control, and this height is considered to be the right height, so without any offsets, so it's like correct reference. And then the control is moved under the pelvis. And I would say it's very elementary, it works just every frame, and you see the result. If for some reason your global control is offset maybe somewhere in the air, positioned maybe on the roof or something like that, then I advise you to offset it first through the animation layer to move it on the floor, on the ground, and then do this operation. Of course, naturally, the new animation layer is created. I can see that if I change the weight, the global control is getting offset. All right, next question is, let's say we can bake it. How can I get it back? Because maybe I want to adjust the animation and then get the main control back to its original position, because that's how my scene is set up. Because sometimes there are these cases, it is necessary for the main control to be in a specific place, in a specific position. Maybe that it always should be at the center of the scene, at the origin, at the zero position. So I select these objects again, all the kind of moving objects. Again, legs, knees, pelvis, chest, arms, elbows, head. I create a new animation layer. Here I can create a new locator and place it where the main control should be. Of course, if it should be maybe the zero position, that you can zero it out. But if you want the main control to be right here for some reason, I don't know, you can leave it right here, place it in the necessary place. Or maybe you can use some kind of a different object for orientation, maybe object in the scene. Then you place this object or this locator in the movable section and use main as the root. Calculate root motion, and it moved to the locator in this case. And it still works as it should be. Naturally, we still have the animation layer, we can change the weight, and so on and so forth, etc. Let me show you one more important thing. I forgot to talk about this. When we recalculate the root motion, turn off the flat checkbox, because with it, the height position is going to be ignored, and if your object specifically is located at a very maybe different height, you want to match in this case locator, you want to match your control to this object precisely without the difference in height. So if you keep the checkbox, it's not going to happen and there will be difference in height. If I had locator maybe in the air, I can turn off flat and it's going to move right here precisely. That's just an important thing to keep in mind. I hope that in this case everything is quite clear. And the last example, last tool to look at, it's a circle walk. It's a special tool for creating walks in circles specifically. Because essentially there is a difference between the character just moving kind of around the corner and the character moving in circles. So right here, we again have our beautiful lady. She's moving forward. And here I made it so, intentionally made it so her leg is moved backward, so it's not very favorable position for animation. Next, we can do the same. We can select the controls. So 2 legs, 2 feet, and main control. Create a new animation layer. Then I'm going to specify the curve object right here. Again, if we want to specify it manually. Overall, a general practice is to specify it. Okay, create a bend curve. There is a new curve. You can see it right here. And I can rotate it like this. Maybe let's use like 90 degrees, negative 90 degrees. Yep, right. It could be 180, doesn't matter. Let's say if we set it to 180. Let's use 90, okay, doesn't matter. And that's it. Calculate circle walk, press this button. You will see that now our character will start moving in circles. You may ask, so what's the deal? Why is it so special? Let's create a new curve. Also, let's maybe rotate it more, maybe like this. No, it will not work, because you should be doing it with the original animation. I have to delete all this. Sorry, my bad. I'm gonna turn it off. Yeah, to make her move forward. Okay. Create bend curve. Nice. Then I start rotating the curve to get a necessary angle. Again, maybe 180 or negative 180 in this case. Calculate circle walk. And she starts moving in circles. Of course, we can adjust it, maybe something like this, just using an animation layer, just a very regular approach. Doesn't really matter right now. So what is the issue? Why can I use the regular curve, just using the path curve, and just make her move in circles? Because essentially you can do the same using this curve, using this approach. But the idea is that, let me show you this example. It's a bit better. Here, let's say if I freeze the main control, you see the first and the last frames are the same, so the animation itself is perfectly looped. But if I used the standard approach using the create path curve tool, the manual path, it would not be the same. So the start and end our animation would mismatch. That's just the way how the algorithm works, and that's why we have the tool specifically for character walking in circles. And I would say that's it. Maybe let's finish this character, just to make some adjustments. Let's rotate her 90 degrees because 180 I didn't like much. I'm gonna adjust the body in some places using animation layers. It's my regular approach. Maybe I want to rotate the head. Right now you may ask, why is it necessary, like in general? So why is this tool for walking in circles, why is it needed? It is needed because in game dev it's actually quite a regular task when the root motion in games should be moving in circles. So it may be seen actually in a lot of games, and it's quite a general task to do. Next I'm gonna mute all. And we'll have our character, our lady walking. Yep, nice, very nice. That's how it is. So I have tried to summarize, I have tried to explain main ideas behind this tool, main examples, what it can be used for. I'm going to repeat myself and say that this tool is based on my other tool, which is called walking band. But this is a simplified version of that tool, because that tool is for far more serious tasks, maybe far more difficult tasks. And this is just for something rather, well, simple. Because that tool, walking band tool, allows you to work with tilts, with rotations, with the different body parts. So it's far more customizable in terms of motion. You can argue that these animations that we looked at in this case are actually not that simple, but still. And that's it. See ya. Hi everyone and welcome. There's been an update to Shifting Tool version 3.1. There is a new setting in this tool which I actually would like to show you. What is it? It's a special button over here, vertical independent. What does it mean? What does it do? Let's take a look. Let's say I have a character over here and I want the character to move uphill. So what you can do, you're going to select the controls, again the leg controls and the global control. Going to create a new animation layer. Next, you're going to create a path curve, as usual essentially. Curve control. Let's say I want the curve to start from here. I want to move it right here. And of course, I want the character to move uphill naturally. But the curve right now is going through the geometry. Maybe a little bit lower. Let me rotate the curve properly. Just to make it, essentially, to make the curve lie on the ground. Yeah, something like this. Again, it's better to do through curve control in order to save the changes to the curve. Yeah, maybe approximately like this. Nice. Last two locators should be located on the plane. I can move it up slightly right here. Then I'm going to unparent this one and move right here, just in order to not to affect other locators down the hierarchy. Okay, nice. Unparent this one, move this one separately. Of course, you may need a high number of CVs, or locators in this case, but let's work with what we got. It's okay. I think that's how it's fine. I'm gonna press apply. And what we got? My character runs now uphill, which is good, looks good. Let's take a look at a different example and actually a new setting. With the vertical independent off. This is more suitable for characters like horses, cows, crocodiles, so more elongated animals or creatures. So in this layer, let's select necessary controls. Those are going to be legs, chest, pelvis, all the sections like spine sections, and the head. I'm going to create path curve. Curve control. I'm going to move it up, move it down. Apply. And that's the result. Awesome, looks neat. Great, you are welcome. Hi there and welcome. There's been an update to the shifting tool version 3.2, and here I would like to tell you about the new features. There is a new feature that is called project. It can be found here. So essentially it projects one curve to another. Let's say we have this horse animation. I want to make this horse follow this geometry. Naturally, the geometry has a rather complicated shape. I'm going to select the geometry. Next, I'm going to make it live. Next, I'm going to go to create a curve tool, and I'm going to draw a curve. So essentially, this curve is going to represent the trajectory of my horse's movement. Awesome. Next, I'm going to select the necessary controls and store them in a separate animation layer. In this case, in the case for the horse, it's going to be legs, it's going to be the main control, global control, it's going to be pelvis, chest, spine sections, chest, head, and the main control. Yep. And then I'm going to start in a separate animation layer, just as usual for this tool. Next, I'm going to create path curve. All right. Holding Shift, I'm going to select the first curve that I created and click the project button. And you'll see that our curve got projected to the first curve. After that, do not forget to turn off the vertical independent because it's a horse and it should rotate its body sections according to the height. If you're working with a human character that just maybe walks up here without tilting, bending or anything, you can leave this option turned on. Click apply and wait. Nice. You see that the horse is moving, follows the curve of the landscape, and generally speaking looks great. Very nice. That's how it is.